Hey folks, so Dad and I are on a road trip. We had to go down to Phoenix to do a couple things, pick up some wood. Oh man, did you see that Mustang?
Yeah, I saw that.
Anyway, so we're on the road. We're between Phoenix and home, probably about 2.5, 3 hours from home. Thought we would do a senior moment from the road. So this is a little bit different. Got the camera set up in the little device there.
Yeah, this is so nice. We may do some more senior moments.
Yeah, this is kind of
Your
cool.
pickup truck.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. So, the last senior moment you guys saw, Dad was talking about when he was a young kid up in Oregon, and I thought you guys we might kind of progress that a little bit and talk about when Dad was a teenager.
I was born in '34, and this is the first senior moment since my birthday, which was on the 17th, which was
right.
like 3 days ago.
A few days ago, yeah.
2 days ago, whatever. So this is my first one. So I was born in '34, so in 1950, I was like 17.
16, 17.
16, 17, so 50 through 55 were my teen years, and I've got a lot of memories. And I left Salem in, let's see, when was it? I was 18 years old, so it was about 1952. I left Salem, and I went to Midland, California. I went to work for U.S. Gypsum Company. U.S. Gypsum Company at that time they owned the whole town of Midland. And my wife was pregnant at the time with what is now my oldest daughter, Renee. And so we moved down there.
And that's out by Blythe.
That's out by Blythe, yeah.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love the weather out there. It never got too hot for me, but my Maisie couldn't take the heat, so after a couple of years, I moved into the coast of California. But to get back to Midland, it was a town that was owned by U.S. Gypsum Company, and I went to work. I think the starting wage was like $1.60 an hour. But there were a couple advantages. They owned the whole town. They owned all the houses. They owned the electricity. They owned the water. They owned Midland. The U.S. Gypsum Company owned it all. And so I made $1.65 an hour, which wasn't not too far away from the average wage in those days. But they had a 2-bedroom house, completely furnished, that I rented for $12 a month, which made that $1.65 an hour look not too bad. And so I worked there for a couple of years. I spent a couple of years there in Midland working for U.S. Gypsum Company. And it was there. When I was there, I bought my first new car. In fact, I bought my only new car. That's the only new car I've ever bought. It was a 1955 Chevy. I paid the tremendous sum of $1,900 total. That's what a 1955 Chevy cost in 1955, or 1954 actually. And so that was my experience buying a new car. And I made up my mind right then, because when I drove it off the lot, I paid $1,900 for it. I drove it off the lot, it was worth about $1,200. So I lost about $700 just by driving out a driveway. I made up my mind right then I was not buying any more new cars.
Okay, so this is when you were living in Midland long before me.
Oh yeah.
But Renee was born out there.
Renee was born out there.
So you must have driven into Blythe to buy it. I mean, was that?
Oh yeah.
That was the closest town, right?
Oh yeah, I bought it in town. There was no merchants at all in Midland.
Not even a store.
Well, they had a store, and the funny thing is, they had all kind of merchandise in the store, but it was a company store. And if we wanted something and we didn't have the money to buy it, I could just sign my name and get what they called script. It was company script, and I could spend that in the company store. That's kind of how they kept their, it was sort of like socialism. They kept their people poor by letting them spend the money that they didn't have,
Yeah.
but they were going to have coming as long as they kept working.
Yeah, didn't Tennessee Ernie Ford, didn't he talk about he owe his soul to the company store?
He owed his soul to the company
Right?
store.
Yeah, that's
And
what.
that's really what it was.
How did I'm curious, I mean, in that store, how did those prices compare to prices if you just went to a regular grocery store in Blythe? Were they comparable?
Yeah, they were comparable. They were slightly less,
Okay.
just marginally less. Like a dozen eggs at 12 cents a dozen in the store in Blythe would be 11 cents a dozen
Okay.
at the company store.
And they didn't have to drive into town.
Didn't have to drive
Because
into town.
It was what, about 10 miles? 10,
Yeah, it was
12?
about 18 miles into town.
Yeah, gotcha.
So instead of a 30-mile drive, to save 2 or 3 cents, we just shop at the store.
Yeah, that
they
makes
had
sense.
clothing, they had shoes and all kind of groceries. They had bread and eggs and milk and everything that you'd find in a grocery store in town. Not like the supermarkets of today, but everything that was in a grocery store in town, they had that and more. At the company store.
And almost like a department store, too. If
It
they
was
had,
like a department store. It was, and they had, it wasn't the only place in the country that they had an installation like that. They had them at other gypsum mills, and what we made out there, I guess I should tell you that, what we made was gypsum board. They had a mine out there that was opened in the 30s. It was high-grade gypsum. And they made the gyp board, which is a wall board that you have in your house.
Yeah.
So we made the gypsum board, and we made a rock lath, which was like smaller versions of the board with holes in it, so that when they put that up and they plastered over it, the plaster would go into these holes and hold the plaster on. But that's what we made at the board plant there. And they had the mine. They had these huge trucks that come into town, and the mine was up in the hills. And it's still there. It's still a huge mine. But it's not operational anymore. But I think the government uses it for storing some sort of strategic materials. And the public doesn't have access to it. But anyway, the trucks would haul the gypsum into the mill where I worked, and they would take the raw ore, refine it into a gypsum slurry, and that's what we made the boards out of.
Gotcha.
And it was a big plant. It was hundreds and hundreds of feet long, a couple thousand feet long, as a matter of fact. And I don't know what the workforce was. I didn't pay too much attention, but they probably had 350 employees at that time. Most of them lived right in Midland.
Yeah.
So they paid rent to the company for the houses.
Gotcha.
And the water was free, the electricity was free. We had a big old power plant. You could hear it at night. You could hear it rumbling. A big, what they call a big single piston steam engine. And it would go boom, boom, boom. And what it was doing, it was actually generating electricity for the town and for the plant.
Yeah.
So we had our own electricity. We had our own water system.
Now you're out in the middle of the desert. Were there air conditioners? Do you remember?
Well, there was air conditioners, but they were like water air conditioners.
Swamp
They had the
coolers.
water swamp coolers. Yeah.
Swamp coolers.
They didn't have air conditioners as such. That was before they were even invented, I guess. But we had swamp coolers in all the houses.
Okay.
We even had a swamp cooler in the car. And I don't know
What, in your Chevy?
Yeah, in the Chevy. What it was a round cylinder, about probably 8 inches in diameter, and it fit on the window. You put it on the window, you roll the window down, then you roll the window up, and this swamp cooler fit on the inside. What you did is you put water in it, and as the air come in, there was a vent that the air had to come in and go through a filter, and it had a string on it. And you pull the string and it rotated that filter. And so the water would rotate up through the filter, you pull the string, and the air would come in and blow on you.
Really?
That was a swamp cooler for cars.
You know, I've seen pictures, but I didn't, of like little air conditioning kind of things, but I didn't know how they worked.
That's what it was. It was a swamp cooler. It was a round cylinder about 2 foot long that would fit in the window of the car. And inside was a filter and a water trough.
Yeah.
And so you put a couple of gallons of water in there. If you wanted it really cool, you could put some water in there and then put some ice.
Put some ice.
And then you'd have really cool air. But as you drove down the road, if you weren't driving, you didn't get any air.
Right.
But as you drove down the road, the air would come in through that thing that was outside of the window.
Yeah.
The air would come in, go through that filter, and if you pull the string, rotated that filter, then the air that come in would be moist and cool.
So it wasn't, it didn't have to have power to it.
No.
Because you were spinning that thing by pulling
you were rotating the power, but just by pulling on that string, you rotated that cylinder, and the air come through the wet cylinder that you put up there. So it was kind of a unique thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what those things would cost nowadays. There's probably some of them still around, but I don't know.
Huh. It seemed like that, I don't know, it seemed like that would be, if you had to take a real quick left turn, somebody's head's going to bash into the side of that thing. But
because all it was inside was just a vent. The cooler was outside.
The cooler was outside. Okay.
But if you had somebody in there that was being playful and you was going 60 miles an hour, and they reached over and yanked on that real quick, the water would come in through that vent. The air would just blow the water in. Instead of cool air, you'd get splattered.
You get soaked.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you pull that chain too hard, too quick, it would the water would go up and it would come in through that vent.
So that's where Mom rode most of the time, I'm assuming.
Mom or the kids, one or the other.
Yeah. But, okay, so the Chevy that you bought, let's go back to the Chevy. The Chevy you bought, it was 55.
Yeah.
2-door? Was it a coupe?
Oh, yeah, it's 2-door. It was the first V8 that Chevy came out with. It had the power pack. It was 327 with a 4-barrel carburetor.
Got it.
And it was pretty
So
hot.
even though you were growing, your family was growing, you still bought a 2-door, so you had to pull the seats up to put the kids in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Oh man.
Yeah, we took nice trips in that car. We took trips to Oregon.
And did you? Now I know you took me out to Midland, which literally there was nothing left. Took me to the house where you guys were,
right.
And there was just some little tiles that you had laid.
Some asphalt tiles that I laid in the house for Macy, because she didn't like the sandy floors.
Yeah.
And it wasn't dirt floor, but it was kind of grainy, like concrete floors. And she didn't want to put rugs everywhere.
Right.
So I bought some asphalt tiles and laid there. And then when I took you out there, years later, I went out to the foundation where the house was.
Yeah.
And some of the asphalt tile was still there.
Right. But when we were out there, I mean, there was nothing. It was pretty much just barren.
Right.
When you were out there, did you have a place to park your car? That's what my thing. Was there a carport or anything?
I just parked right beside the house.
You got a
we didn't have carports.
Brand new Chevy, and it's baking in the desert sun.
Yeah, well, that was the way it was. No matter what you had, you parked it by your house.
Yeah.
And since there wasn't any carports or covers, you parked it where you could. So
all right.
the nice thing about it is your house was sitting there, and there was no trees out there.
Right.
So your house, you could park on. You had 4 sides of the house you could park on, and you could move your car into the shade anytime you wanted to. So,
Gotcha.
so that was one of the advantages of being out there. But it was
Okay.
it was quite an experience.
So after you left and so you must have been, you were early 20s, because you and Mom got married like when you were like 19.
18.
That's what I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, we got married at 18.
And then you guys came down to Blythe from Oregon.
Right.
And
So we actually came to Phoenix.
really,
Yeah.
that's new. I didn't know that.
And when we left Salem, I had a couple $1,000 saved up. And so we went down to San Diego first and stayed down there for 3 weeks. Played on the beach, just had a good time. Then we decided to see what Phoenix looked like. So we drove out to Phoenix, and I was getting a little bit low on money. And I thought, well, I think I'll look around, see if I can find some work. And I didn't have any real experience.
What were you driving at that time? It wasn't the Chevy.
No, it was an old Ford, like a 38 or 39 Ford.
Got it. Okay.
And so we drove. No, as a matter of fact, it was my 49 Merc. It was that custom Mercury that I had.
Okay.
1949 two-door Mercury. And so anyway, we drove down to San Diego, stayed there for 3 weeks, enjoyed ourselves. Then we went out to Phoenix, and I started getting a little bit low on money. Started looking around for a job. I went down to the employment office just to see what they had. I really had no experience except in the canneries in Oregon.
Yeah.
They didn't have any canneries in Phoenix. So I went to look and see what I could find. And there was a recruiter there from U.S. Gypsum Company. He had a little desk in there, and they was recruiting help for the company. And I sat down and started talking to him, and I thought, well, that sounds like something I might be interested in doing.
Yeah.
So I went back, and we were staying at a motel. I talked to Maisie, and she said, whatever you want to do, let's do it. So I went back down and signed on with the company, and we headed on. She was about 8.5 months pregnant.
But that's what I was going to say. Was she pregnant with Renee at that point?
Oh, yeah, she was about 8.5 months pregnant.
Okay. All right.
So by the time we got out to Midland, within about a week or 2, she had the baby.
Yeah.
We had to drive her into Blythe, to the hospital in Blythe, and that's where Renee was born.
Yeah. I remember stories way back when that Mama told that she wasn't crazy about the desert and Blythe.
She just couldn't get used to the heat.
Well, it wasn't. The thing that I remember that she said she hated the most was during cricket season. And she said she literally would have to sweep crickets out of the house like dustpanfuls, and like there thousands and thousands.
And she was so paranoid about Renee getting bit by a cricket. I don't think crickets bite people, but she wasn't. She didn't know that. And I can remember times that she took a broom and a chair, and Renee had her one bedroom. We had a 2-bedroom house. Renee had her own bedroom, and she would sit in the door with that broom and sweep these crickets away as they would come in, so they wouldn't get to her baby. And I remember laughing at her at the time. I told her crickets don't hurt people. I said they make a mess, but they don't hurt people. But cricket season in those days, just to give you an example, in Blythe, when we would drive to Blythe, the crickets were so thick in Blythe, they would cover the side of a building. There would be a white building, but it would be black with crickets. And the street would be covered with crickets, and there would be automobile accidents from people driving too fast and not realizing it, slamming on their brakes and sliding into something just because of the crickets.
So many crickets on the road.
Many,
it was like
hundreds
slick.
of millions of crickets. And it was like the streets were slick with them, where the cars had run over them.
Ooh. Yeah.
For some reason, they don't have them quite that bad anymore. But in those days, back in the 50s, the late 50s, I'm telling you, it was something to behold. It really was. I don't know what the situation is with cricket now, but I can remember in the board plant, as we were making gypsum boards, the crickets would come in there by the thousands. And generally they would stay, because of the heat involved in making the boards, they would stay away from it. But once in a while, one of them would fly in and land in the gyp mix that we had. We had a big mixer. And where it came out of the mixer and went into the board underneath the big roller, once in a while crickets would fly in there. So there's houses out there with crickets in their walls. They don't even know it.
Well, I'm sure you've got stories about the cannery, about, that's in your walls. How many different critters are you eating when you eat a can of food?
Yeah,
in the
that's
cannery.
true.
Maybe it's different now, though. Maybe they've got better...
Well, when we were canning pumpkins, when I was 14 years old, I was working in canneries. When we were canning pumpkins, there was every kind of environment you can imagine that would come in with the pumpkins. They would load them in these gondolas and bring them in by the train car load. And I mean everything from rabbits to rats to snakes to lizards. And of course, we'd call them all out. Anytime we saw them, we'd get them out of there. But there was no way, I don't believe there was any way we could get them all out of there. Especially when they were making a pumpkin mash for pumpkin pies. And because they had these big vats, even though they were closed vats, it was still the way they dumped the pumpkins in there. They were careful, but they weren't absolutely pristine.
Yeah.
So there were things that got in there. Bugs and flies and butterflies. There was things that got into that pumpkin mix. And funny thing is, I told your mother about it, and she was always kind of a little leery, but it never bothered me. I still love pumpkin pie to this day, and they still can it the same way.
Well, but maybe they've got a little bit better safeguards or filtering.
Well, they probably do.
Maybe.
They probably do. I haven't been in a cannery for 60 years, so... 70 years, actually.
So maybe
the last time I was in a cannery, I was 17, 16.
So maybe the
70 years.
Maybe the cannery industry process has gotten a little bit more.
I'm sure they may be a little more sanitary nowadays.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Who knows? All right, guys, we're going on 25 minutes here, so I think. I don't know, I might break this down into a couple different videos. I'm not sure yet, but we're running into a little bit of traffic here coming into Wickenburg. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that. And I think we might do this again.
Yeah, let me know if you enjoyed it. Yeah, next time we go on a trip like to Vegas or we got to come back down to Phoenix and get plastic.
Yeah, that's right.
I bought a bunch of plastic, but they didn't have time to cut it while we were here. So we have to come back in
probably a week or so.
Yeah, and early next week we'll come back.
We'll do some
Thursday.
Today's Thursday.
Yeah, we'll probably come back Monday or Tuesday and pick up the plastic.
And we'll do it again.
Yeah,
this is fun. I like it.
We'll do another one of these. I'll try to think of something that I think might be of interest to people nowadays, just compared to how it was back when I was a kid.
And here's a thought. This just came to mind. If you guys have any specific questions about that you would like to ask Dad, let us know. We'll take that. Email me, eric@makeawoodsign.com, or you can email Dad. But
email him.
Email me because Dad
don't even mess with my email.
Dad loses some stuff. So email me. And let me know if you have some questions, and we'll do kind of a little Q&A kind of thing on here, which would be kind of cool too.
Yeah.
Anything about his childhood or growing up or whatever. If you guys want to hear some stuff like that, hey, let me know.
Anything
That'd be
that I can pass along to you that you have an interest in. Doesn't have to be anything fabulous, just something you have an interest in. If I have memories of it, I'll be glad to share.
All right, guys, we're out. We're coming into Wickenburg. So everybody have a great day. See you later. Say bye, Dad.
Bye, Dad.